twice-monthly conversation with restaurateurs, chefs, growers, and others who have helped generate the legends associated with eateries across the Mid-South. The team at Benny Keith is proud to sponsor this adventure with the goal of preserving the stories that have helped cultivate an amazing food scene across the Mid-South. So kick back and enjoy a Heaping Spoonful.
Greetings all, and welcome to another episode of Heaping Spoonful. I'm your host, Kelly Bass, and it's my pleasure to visit with some of the key players on the Mid-South culinary scene every couple of weeks. These kinds of conversations come really naturally to me. Back in the pre-podcast, pre-TripAdvisor, pre-Yelp days, I was lucky enough to be just one of two folks here in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, who had restaurant reviews as one of my duties as a journalist and a newspaper, in fact, two newspapers. And my wife and I still plan our days and definitely plan our vacations around what are we going to eat and where are we going to eat. So I love this job. Today on Heaping Spoonful, I'm visiting with a good friend of mine, Don Dugan, proprietor and namesake of Dugan's Pub, and owner-operator of Dizzy's Gypsy Bistro, two mainstays of the downtown Little Rock restaurant scene. So welcome, Don.
Hey.
I saw on Facebook, I think just this week, and for those listening later, we were recording this in mid-October of 2019, that you just celebrated the 9th anniversary of the opening of Dugan's Pub.
We did. It was we opened on 10/10 of 10. So
10/10 of 10.
Really easy to remember.
That's cool. Well, and I've pretty much been a loyal customer since that day because we were just about to move into downtown Little Rock at that time.
Happy to have you.
Yeah, thanks. So we're going to talk more in a few minutes about the career progression that ended up with you at this point, your current chapter of owning those two restaurants and running those two restaurants. But I kind of want to stay with Dugan's Pub right now because that's a place I'm comfortable talking about because it's a place I'm really comfortable hanging out for sure.
That's exactly what we're going for.
For those not familiar with Dugan's, it's important to know that it's on the first floor of River Market Tower, which is a high-end condo building in downtown Little Rock. It's a 20-story condo tower. Am I correct? It seems like I know a lot of folks who live there that they have been pretty loyal customers to you since the day that you opened your doors.
They have, and we are very, very appreciative of it, man. I tell you what, when we were building, when we were constructing, we purposely didn't put anything on the windows because I wanted them to all see it as it was coming along and progressing, and they all wanted to see it as it was coming along and progressing. And then, a lot of times as we're in there and, moving in, moving out, and, different steps and things going on, they would stop by and they'd be like, hey, how's it going? What are you looking at? What are things looking like? Oh my gosh, that's going to look really cool. Man, that's going to be fantastic. And so we were excited to have that feedback, and it generated excitement for them as well. They're going to have a really nice pub in the bottom. I mean, we're basically the bar in their basement.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the attitude that we take and the way that we want to be. We want to be the place that they go, okay, well, I'm going to go downstairs and go have a drink and watch the game, or I'm going to go downstairs and grab some food and I'll be right back. But literally, they never leave the compound. They just go straight down and go right back up.
Yeah, it's exactly cool. And like you say, them watching the whole thing come together gives them not literal but figurative ownership in the place. I mean, it makes them feel part of it, which is cool. And I've noticed, and again, I've known you a long time and I've hung out there a lot, you've cultivated a lot of different audiences that love Dugan's and are very loyal to Dugan's. It is absolutely the place that if you are a fan of any level of professional soccer, that are there. I know you're when I was watching the World Cup, in fact, I watched the finals of the World Cup in Kansas City, and one of your patrons said, I can tell you the bar in Kansas City that's like Dugan's in terms of being it actually has a name for it. It's like a...
Right, so there's a group that is put together called the American Outlaws, and they follow all of the men's and women's national team games. And so we were lucky enough that they said, hey, do you want to be our home bar? And I said, absolutely, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
And so once we made that association, now anybody, anywhere, that's part of that group can go look on their website and see, okay, well, I'm going to be in Little Rock on that game. Where's the place to go? Oh, that's the place to go.
And the cool thing is, based on time zones and such, there's a lot of times that's really the only sport that's happening, and all of a sudden there are people that are watching it. Also, of course, in lots of sports-oriented or any other bars and pubs and restaurants in Little Rock and Arkansas, people come to watch Hog games, they come to watch St. Louis Cardinals or Cubs games because those are big, popular things.
That they do.
But then I remember one day, and we were having the same sort of conversation, you were the University of Kansas bar. I guess they called you and said, hey, we'd like to bring a lot of people every time Kansas men's basketball plays. We'd like to bring a lot of people and spend a lot of money in your place. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, that was a surprise but grateful. They'd kind of decided to start coming anyway. And there was a group of probably 6 or 7. And they said, listen, we have a bunch of Kansas alumni around. Would it be okay if we came down and watched the games? And would you put the sound on for us? And I was like, well, so long as it doesn't conflict with Razorback games, then yeah.
Yeah.
So we started kind of putting them in the snug at first because that's all we had. And then once we expanded, suddenly we've got this big private room. They're more than comfortable back there.
Sure.
They've gotten up to as many as 55 or 60, I think, at one point. I mean, we had them overflowing out of that room and into the rest of the pub. And, we put them in the snug also and, just anywhere we could fit them.
Having a built-in audience and, again, they're not afraid to pull out their credit cards and buy food and drinks is fabulous. And
you'd be surprised. There's actually the Cleveland Browns.
Oh, I knew that.
Also.
I was just there last Sunday.
They came to us and said, hey, we got about 20 people that would like to come every game. Okay, done. Sure, come on.
I saw the Browns banners hanging up.
Oh, yeah.
That's really cool. Well, we shouldn't focus too terribly much on sports because although your front seat at the center of your bar is my very favorite place to watch a game, and I've watched many of them there and still will.
I've seen several.
But you also have really done something I think is great, which you have elevated. There's nothing fancy. It's just high quality, made from scratch pub grub that leans Irish. And so the things, and I don't even know if what I consider Irish food is what they consider Irish food in Dublin. But we're talking bangers and mash and shepherd's pie, corned beef and cabbage, the classic Reuben. But you do them all really, really well. If you just, and we'll go back to talking about your history in this business, but yeah. It sounds basic, but so many people take shortcuts and don't do a really good job of making what's fairly basic stuff.
Well, most of that, actually all of that, we make from scratch. So, it's nothing, but we've got one small chest freezer back there, that's it. And that's because fish comes in frozen, we have to put it somewhere.
Right.
Ice cream, we have to keep cold. There's a few other things that we do in there. Some of the bread that we get in, it's frozen when it comes in. And so we try to keep it frozen until we don't need to keep it frozen anymore. But for the most part, everything we do is from scratch. We cook down our shepherd's pie, our stew, our corned beef and cabbage. The corned beef and cabbage, we take a whole side of corned beef and we cook that down 3.5, 4 hours and put in potatoes, carrots, celery, onions, all of that in there. And so it all, and cabbage, and then cook it all together so it's got all that flavor together.
Yeah.
And it's, the corned beef comes out super tender. We pull it out, we slice it, and stick it in the fridge until it's time to serve it. And so we heat it back up and send it out.
Yeah. Well, I've told you this before, but I'm a big fan of the Irish stew, and it comes with some soda bread, a piece of brown bread with it that I really like. And I asked my server, I said, "So what brand bread is this? It's really good." He said, "Oh no, we make it." And I thought, but seriously, in these days, and I know Benny Keith is the sponsor of Heaping Spoonful, and I know you're a Benny Keith customer, but and they have some pretty good bread, and actually they probably got some pretty good Irish stew. And I know a lot of restaurants that take shortcuts and don't think about making something they don't have to make. So I applaud you for doing that because I was really impressed when I heard that.
Better to me, and making the brown bread is something that I like. I would love to call it actual soda bread, but it's not. It's just brown bread. Okay. Soda bread has a little bit different texture and a little bit different taste. Ours is a little sweeter, but it's a bread that I like, and it's a recipe that my wife and I used at home, and then we started selling that.
Right. All right. Well, we're going to take a short break here on Heaping Spoonful. We're talking to Don Dugan of Dugan's Pub and Dizzy's Gypsy Bistro, which we'll talk more about your moderately recent acquisition of that fairly legendary restaurant. So hang with us. We'll be right back.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of Heaping Spoonful. We at Benny Keith Foods enjoy talking about the food scene almost as much as we enjoy providing the top quality ingredients that help restaurateurs and chefs across the Mid-South create their magic. Now let's dive even deeper into the culinary world with your host, Kelly Bass.
All right, folks, welcome back to Heaping Spoonful. We're visiting today with Dugan's owner and namesake, Don Dugan, owner and namesake of Dugan's Pub and owner of Dizzy's Gypsy Bistro, which is basically right around the corner.
It's kind of a tongue twister.
I know, on River Market Avenue in downtown Little Rock. Don, I first met you in the mid-'90s, and before we began recording today, we talked about your entire restaurant career, and if we went through every step of the way, then we'd be on here for a couple hours. But I will. It's interesting in me and makes me happy that you've worked starting in high school. That we counted 10 restaurants, not counting the 2 that you now own.
Correct.
And that you went in and out of the restaurant business. That you did some telemarketing, which is everybody's favorite job, both on the
Worst job ever.
The work side and the receiving side. You sold, or actually you bought textbooks. You were a real estate appraiser. And you told me that, and I thought it was really interesting that when you were doing the real estate appraising, that you were talking to the guy that you worked with and about real estate appraising, and he realized after talking to you that you tolerated and you could do that, but that you really loved restaurants. And he said, Don, you need to pursue your passion. You need to get back in restaurants.
She locked the door to the truck and wouldn't let me out. And then I looked at him and I was like, man, okay, I get what you're saying, but are you firing me? And he said, well, I mean, sort of, but you just need to go get another job. You can be here until you go get another job, but you need to go get a job at a restaurant.
Right, because that's what you love. And again, we've also talked about the fact that as you bounced around and had jobs and waited tables and bartended and did a little managing, went off to other careers and back or other jobs and back, you never could foresee how it ended up working out. But in the other interesting story is that your friend that owned Markham Street Grill and Pub, which had Kelly's Bistro was the original name of that location, and he rebranded it. And you were talking one day, you were working with him, you're like, why don't you let me be a partner? And he's like, okay. Well, why don't you let me just buy the whole thing? He's like, okay.
I mean, that was literally our negotiation. It was just that simple.
Yeah, and so in 2006, right? 2006,
February of 06.
You became a restaurant owner, and you told me put in place the things that you knew how to do and turn the financial performance of that business around.
Oh my gosh, we took it from doing a low 6 figures a year to doing a low 7 figures in about a year and a half.
Yeah, which is fabulous. And again, was it the same kind of focus that you've done at Dugan's, making fresh food, doing it well, and serving people well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, and some of the items that we have at Dugan's were actually on the menu at Markham Street. And, some of the things Rick had already done, but there's plenty that we've done, since then. But some of the things that he did there were phenomenal, and they worked. I mean, it's like, it works. Why would we change it?
Yeah, exactly.
And it sells, and people like it.
Well, we've also talked about the fact that you're a sports watching destination, and that also you have cultivated different groups of people who want to come, or you maybe haven't cultivated them, you just accepted them and welcomed them. But I remember that Markham Street Grill and Pub also had live music on the weekends.
Oh, yeah.
And you do that at Dugan's too, and that brings in a crowd that's beyond your sports watching crowd, beyond your dinner crowd. They're coming in to see Shannon Boshears or Jason Hale or whomever.
Listen, Shannon's been fantastic, and I set her up years ago because, number one, I like her a lot. Number two, she's really great. Number three, she has a following. Yeah. And they come every time she plays.
I know. But it's the same type deal. I mean, it's getting beyond the folks who are just going to come in to have lunch or just come in to watch the Razorbacks.
Right.
You got your music crew, which I just think that's fabulous.
But, I mean, she comes once a month, and so we are happy to have her once a month.
Right. And so a lot of people that know the Arkansas food scene know that Darla Huey had Dizzy's in Benton at a time, and there's probably the best restaurant maybe that's ever been in Benton. I can't swear to that, but it was certainly well loved there. Moved into the River Market area of Little Rock. Her customers followed her. She cultivated new customers.
Boy, did they follow her.
I know, and it's really been a mainstay, and again, right around the corner, and now it's part of your operation. So was that just you had the opportunity, Darla was ready to move on, get out of the restaurant business?
Well, she contacted me right around St. Patrick's Day. And I'm like, I'm kind of busy. I mean, you know what we're all getting ready to do here. And she goes, I need to talk to you. And I said, okay. And we had a conversation. She's kind of worn out with things. Her mother wasn't in great health. She was ready to kind of move on and have an opportunity to spend more time with her mom.
Sure.
And so she asked if we'd be interested. Well, I said something. I said, let me talk to my wife. I mean, my wife is my business partner, and we don't make business decisions without each other if it's something major, So it's something that's, affects both of us and our family, and so we've got to make sure that we're all on board with all that. And so we talked and we decided, let's pursue this a little further, and so we did, and then we came to an agreement. And as of May 7th, we are the current owners of Dizzy's Gypsy Bistro.
Right. And I remember talking to you then too, and again, you walked into a situation where you had a loyal clientele, a good staff, a solid, diverse menu, and I think you've taken a little bit. I'm sure you've tweaked things, but you've taken a lot of the "if it ain't broke, don't fix it" mentality.
I mean, part of what attracted us was the fact that we didn't have to come in and fix a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, it was already working.
No,
it's like it's working. Why are we? I mean, Darla did a great job. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
And you know, if anything, we have maybe improved the bar program a little bit, but a little bit. It's not by leaps and bounds. You know what I mean? Because what she was doing already was fantastic. So all we had to do was show up and just keep the ball rolling.
Right, which is great. Well, as everybody knows, I mean, the restaurant business is an extremely fickle one. And there's a lot more failure stories than there are success stories. And to succeed as well and as long as you have, it really requires a focus on the fundamentals of business. And you've been around to enough places to learn a lot of lessons. Can you tell our listeners about kind of the general business principles that you focus on when you think about how to run a restaurant?
Man, so my wife and I always talk about you get 2 good bites of the apple with most people in Little Rock, right? And I assume that it's probably the same way anywhere you go. The first or second time, it better be great. If the first time isn't great, you might get a second time, and if you do, then it needs to be great then, because if you strike out on both, you're done. They're not coming. If it's great the first time and not so great the second time, you'll get a third shot.
Right.
Right. So that's something that we know, and we try to make sure that we're within those first 2. But as far as the philosophy goes, I have a belief that you hire smart people and you let them do their job, right? You didn't hire them because you needed just a warm body and you need to push them around and tell them what to do. I mean, that feeds your ego that you're able to boss people around. That's great, but that doesn't help your business. Ultimately, it's about making people better. And, I've got folks that have worked for me for quite a while, and then they're like, well, I kind of got a job opportunity in the career field that I'm really trying to go into, or, they just finished school or whatever, and I'm ecstatic for them. And they're surprised. Like, we thought you'd be mad if I was giving my note. No, I'm thrilled. It's exactly what you want to do. Are you passionate about it? And they're like, well, yeah. Then fantastic. Go kick ass.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can say that. Go kick butt.
Yeah, right.
Get in there and go smoke it, man. I mean, that's what we want to do. We want to hire smart people. Smart people are malleable, and they'll do things that are reasonable so long as they're reasonable.
Sure.
I'm not going to ask anybody to do anything I'm not willing to do.
No, I know, and I know, of course, because I'm there a lot. I know a lot of your staff, particularly at Dugan's, and they're a great lot. And this is our 6th episode of Heaping Spoonful, hopefully of 600 that we end up doing. But that is one theme that I guess it's in any business. I mean, get good people, give them direction, encourage them, give them the resources they need to be successful, and then let them do their job.
Support them.
Yeah.
So I'm a fan of Ken Blanchard, and I was actually watching something from him last night. I wrote the 1 Minute Manager and Who Moved My Cheese, several other things, and he said something that just struck me that I don't guess I picked up on before, and I don't know why, or maybe I have, and I just do it and I just didn't think about it. But servant leadership, right? So your people that are out there are the ones that are interacting with your customers. It's taking the power away from the top and putting it at the bottom. And then the people that are on the front lines are the ones that have all the power.
Sure.
So, inverse your triangle there. You put the power mass at the bottom and push, and let everybody else push. And let them be smart. Let them do their job. Interact with your clientele and do good things with them. That's what develops your business. And one of the things that he kept saying over and over is, the brains of all of us is better than the brains of one of us. And he's right.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know all the answers. There's plenty of times I'm wrong. There's been plenty of things I've been wrong about. And they're like, son of a gun, I would not have guessed that would have worked, but what do you know? Putting vegetarian burgers in at Dugan's, I was like, there's absolutely no way we're going to sell these. We don't have people coming and asking for that. And one of my bartenders is a vegetarian, and she's like, God, please, just do it. Finally, after about 6 years, I said, fine, do it. She did it. We have sold more of those than I ever thought we would sell.
Yeah.
And I was like, son of a gun, I should have done this a long time ago.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's really cool. Being successful is all about a mix of talent, hard work, and luck. I mean, are there any big breaks that have happened along the way where you just maybe opening Dugan's was one of the big breaks, but is there like pivotal moments where you're like, wow, that really went well?
Meeting Jimmy and Rhett,
Yeah.
Jimmy Moses and Rhett Tucker. They
were developers.
Developers here in Little Rock. And actually, when we moved into Dugan's, they were the ones that owned the property. And those guys have been some phenomenal landlords for us. They have helped at every turn that we've asked. They have, they've been firm when they've had to be, because there have been times that we've done stupid stuff, I'm sure some of my staff. But for the most part, any time that we've asked for anything or needed help with something, they were there to do it. And they've done it. And they haven't backed out.
No, well, that's fabulous. So one thing that really differentiates you from other restaurant owners is that you also own and operate a market, Stratton's Market, which is connected to Dugan's and is I'm probably selling it short when I say it's just a supplier of top quality produce and other grocery items, and of course it's a full liquor store. So you have beer, wine, and spirits, which is separate.
That's a weird thing for Arkansas.
It is, that there's only a couple of permits that you were able to get, one of them that allow that to happen. But it's really important here in the hotel district if somebody might want to, grab a bottle of bourbon or a bottle of wine or a 6-pack of beer.
Or
you're
a
right there.
toothbrush.
Yeah, or a toothbrush or a candy bar.
Right. I had to give my toothpaste stuff on the plane. Do you guys carry toothpaste? Absolutely.
Yes, yeah. So what have you learned from that venture? Because that's not your background as retail.
No, it's not. I'm terrible at it. My wife is so much better at that than I am. She runs that side of the business. I'm a direction and idea guy over there, and that's about all I am.
Yeah.
She is the executioner. That's wrong. Well, sort of the right thing, but not the right thing. She's the one that executes over there. I've learned that the grocery business is a very thin margin business, and you have to move a lot of product to be able to get any type of money out of it.
Yeah. Well, it's a nice thing for those who live downtown and those who are staying downtown. So as we wrap up, I'm going to ask you a little bit off the wall questions, and I'll try to ask every one of the guests here on Heaping Spoonful. Who are some of, or any of the famous people who've come to one of your restaurants?
Well, got Coach Herm Edwards in there.
Oh, he's great.
Yeah, he was fantastic. They had brought him in. I think the Buzz had brought him in. Buzz is a local radio station here. They brought him in for a touchdown club deal, or some other deal that he was speaking at, and they brought him to the pub for lunch. Jeff Henderson, the Olympic gold medalist, triple jump.
Yeah.
He's been in
there.
there.
Yeah, he's in Arkansas.
Yeah, he is. I got a picture of him in the pub standing there with me and my wife. He's got his gold medal around his neck. We have had several musicians. Tracy Lawrence.
Yeah, another Arkansas.
He is another Arkansas buddy of mine. We've been friends since we're about 12.
Wow, that's amazing.
He's been in several times.
Yeah. That's cool, though.
Several.
Yeah. You haven't even mentioned me yet. Yeah,
but Kelly, you're infamous in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Yeah, that's probably more. So has anything crazy ever happened in your restaurant? Something that was just like, I cannot believe that. I mean, that you could talk about on the podcast here?
We've had numerous incidents with, people sometimes being overserved. People get a little adventurous, and sometimes they get out of hand. There was a particular group of 3 girls that were in town. They were all friends from college, and they all lived in other places, and Little Rock was kind of a central location for them, and they'd come in. And they were a little out of hand, and they were day drinking. And so it was, a lot of words flying around. We had kids in the pub, and, football's on, and it wasn't an appropriate time for them to be there. 3 hours later, it would have been great. At that time, it wasn't.
So you had to diffuse that situation?
We did, and so we asked the ladies to, please step out, come back and see us later. 2 of the ladies said, we get it, that's fine. The third one got super indignant and absolutely was not leaving. She wasn't going to leave, and you couldn't make her leave. Well, what am I going to do? If it's a guy, I can kind of go, hey, come on, put my hands on him and go, hey, let's go outside. But that wasn't possible, so I had to call Miss Cindy, who was a officer that worked in that area or our area of town. She came in, and Cindy was nice and was like, listen, and Cindy was as lovely as she could be, and said, I'm not trying to do anything. He's asked you to leave. It's time to go. You need to go. And she still refused. Well, Cindy had to physically put her hands on her and get her out the door. And even after she was out of the door, Cindy said, all you got to do is go. Just go. I'm not gonna arrest you. I'm not gonna do anything. Just go. Y'all go somewhere else. You can be anywhere else. You just can't be here. And the lady popped off again and popped off again and popped off again. And Cindy said, "That's it, I'm done." Put cuffs on her and took her out.
So she came with her college friends to Little Rock and got herself arrested.
She did.
All started Dugan. All right, final question today. What advice would you give someone contemplating opening a restaurant? And again, as I say to all of them, don't do it. It's really not the answer.
Okay. First thing I can tell you is, if you have never been in the restaurant business before, find somebody who has, that you know, or you at least have some ability to be able to trust, or it has a track record that you can pinpoint and see that they've been successful where they've been. The restaurant business is very easy to siphon money into different little pockets that nobody sees. Product goes out the door, liquor gets poured over the bar, drinks go out free, things like that. I mean, you have to keep in mind it's a business. When I look up on my bar, yes, I see a bunch of really cool bottles of some great whiskeys and vodkas and gins and rums and all that. But what I really see are dollar signs, because that's an investment that I've made. Same thing. I walk into the walk-in, I see kegs of beer, I see all the food that we have in the walk-in, and it all looks fantastic. However, those are dollar signs, and you have to treat it like a business.
Yeah.
So hire good quality people to be around. Do background checks on people if you can. I mean, do your own. Ask around, check for references. Get references from people that you trust.
Sure.
If you have been in the business before and you're not in it, and then you decide you want to get into it, a lot of that still applies. Find somebody who's smart enough to be able to run it. Be smart enough to know what you know, and be smart enough to know what you don't know.
Good points.
And find those people that know the things that you don't know. I specifically do not want yes people around me, because that doesn't make us better.
Right.
That doesn't make us grow. Again, like I said, there's plenty of times I've been wrong, and the collective brains around us are smarter than just the one brain that's here. So be smart enough and humble enough to take advice from people, and take what they have to say, sometimes with a grain of salt, but it doesn't mean that they're wrong. Their delivery just may be terrible.
Sure.
So I don't know. Be smart enough to know what you know. Be smart enough to know what you don't know.
And get people to help you. Good.
Yes.
Well, listen, Don, thank you so much. I appreciate your time here on Heaping Spoonful. I know our listeners have enjoyed it. So I will come see you soon. Everybody, keep an eye on the Arkansas Times website. We post these about, I think, the second Tuesday and fourth Tuesday of each month. So come back and see us, and thanks for listening.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Heaping Spoonful. On behalf of all of us at Benny Keith Foods Mid-South Division, please know how much we love connecting you with the legends of the culinary scene and their unique stories. I look forward to the next time we can offer you another